Breaking the cycle to step forward. Authentic conversations from lived experience and a professional perspective in overcoming abuse with Chris Tuck and Beverley Ann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward podcast with myself, Chris Tuck, and the lovely
Beverley Ann. Hello.
And today's podcast is all about adult safeguarding, and we are calling it the Recovery Rollercoaster. Now, let me just set the scene a little bit, and then I'll come to Beverley for her views on this subject. So adult safeguarding, it's National Adult Safeguarding Week, and this podcast will be released at the end of this week. And it's all about protecting an adult's right to live in safety, free from abuse and neglect. So safeguarding adults is all about preventing harm, reducing the risk of abuse or neglect to adults with care and support needs, and stopping abuse and neglect wherever possible. So really, it's the same as safeguarding children, but obviously adults. So what does that bring to mind for you, Bev?
With all of this is fantastic, and I'm really, appreciative of these different events coming up because it enables these conversations to be opened. But there's something that I'm always reflective of because, yes, when we're aware of someone being vulnerable, when somebody needs support, yes, we can action that. But I like to go a little bit underneath because I know from my own lived experience, I would never have classified myself as a vulnerable adult years ago. However, I was very much a vulnerable adult and I didn't know how to ask for support. And to the outside world, I didn't look vulnerable, and yet I was.
Okay, can you give us some more details?
Absolutely. So, we all know that I've got childhood experiences with sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, being in out of care, etc. But I also remember being in my early 20s and reading all these other stories and not realising or not having the knowledge of knowing the impact that had of me. So although I wanted to change my life and I knew that I could have choices, now I'm an adult at 16. Now I'm an adult, I'm going to change my life and I'm going to go forward. That was done, that was my survival instinct. But what I hadn't realised was how it's going to impact on me. And that meant when I was making my choices, so establishing a relationship, I didn't actually understand about boundaries. I didn't understand about healthy relationship because I didn't know that. I hadn't learned that growing up, as we assume everybody does. Yeah. And it's that assumption we make. So when I was in what I considered a really loving relationship, I didn't realise at that time it wasn't loving, it was control. Mm-hmm. And if I said something that wasn't liked, there would be a consequence. Yeah. And I remember when I started my own recovery, after having children, I've realised, I was getting night terrors, etc. I was ready to enter recovery. And that was a little bit of double-edged sword because I started having counselling and support for my childhood. But that meant even the person that I was with at that time in that relationship, they didn't want it. And I had the biggest argument ever after my first session of counselling.
They didn't want you to have the counselling?
Yes.
Interesting. Why?
Yeah. Well, the things that came up was, why do you want to talk about something that happened years ago? And you can imagine how I would have reacted to that as well, because that means being vulnerable and sharing something in an environment I didn't feel was safe.
Yeah.
And so why would I want to talk? Also, what I'm hearing, the messages, why do you want to talk about something that happened years ago? And yet I'm feeling the impact of it. So this is where the roller coaster starts. Because if you think of it, I always liken it to myself. I'd gone to the fairground, so I'd found the courage to reach out for support because I needed it, and I realised I needed it. I got into the carriage, started the journey, and straight away I was getting the backlash for wanting it and needing it.
What was your then partner saying to you? Why did they not want you to have this new knowledge?
I didn't know at the time, but if I was to look back now, I think it's fear of the unknown, and so fear of, what is it I'm going to unravel? What is it I'm going to talk about? And even though they'd been very good when I did disclose that I'd been sexually abused by my dad, because I never spoke about the other person, they were really supportive then. But to go and get support, that's the fear of the unknown. In fact, the words were said, you don't need to speak to a stranger. You can speak to me. And I said, but
so your partner said this to you?
Yes.
Right.
And also that meant that as I was going through recovery and as I was finding out different things about myself, etc., that person, through their fear, and I do believe it was fear, I can't answer that one. That person would need to answer it. But all I can say is the more I was getting support and help, the more that person became very challenging. And it turned into, there was a physical abuse that followed that.
Right. I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah.
I often hear from other adult victim and survivors, that individuals that we work with, once they start getting help and support, their awareness increases. Some of the relationships do break down because the partners, husbands, wives, don't understand that this person is now moving on and growing, and sometimes they don't actually like that. They feel like they're being left behind. And so it's really important that if you are an individual that is in a protected, loving, safe relationship, that as you do go through your recovery journey, whatever that looks like, that you consider communicating what's going on for you with the loved one in your life, so that you can take them with you.
That sounds fantastic, and absolutely, but not everybody's in that 100%. Place to be able to do it. So, yeah. And that's what's lovely about these conversations, because let's be frank, that would be the ideal, the perfect ideal. And in all fairness, I did think that as well. But it's when we look at, the safeguarding, it really, I look back now with hindsight and think, wow, I didn't realise how vulnerable I was as an adult. And it was...
Explain more.
Well, it was only in the end, the relationship did break down.
Yeah.
I was living on my own, but there was still this, I left a very abusive relationship and didn't realise at the time, but it was somebody else who'd been through it. And it wasn't that I'd said anything. It was obviously she was watching different things, and she gave me a leaflet about domestic abuse. And I was like, no, I've left him. But then it was only as I read the information, I was like, oh, I'm still being threatened. That still comes into domestic abuse. Oh, I can get help. And it meant that I did get support from the police. But if I hadn't realised that, I would never have got support. And this is a double-edged sword for me at the time back then of recovery. Recovery was great because it was releasing me, but it was also for a while putting me in danger. But then because somebody gave me the knowledge and the information, and that's why we have these weeks for safeguarding weeks, have these conversations, I was able to learn more and ask for the support and say, I need help.
Often society in general will look at a woman or a man that's in a domestic violence relationship once they know about it, and they say, why didn't the person, the victim, leave sooner, especially if there's children involved? And we have busted this myth time and time again. My mum was in 2 domestic violent relationships, and she left the first one, found the courage when there was no refugees around. So 1977, she left that abusive relationship. But then she went and got with another man that was just as abusive to her. And she knew she was being abused. But her words to me, when I tried to offer her a way out so many times, she said, better the devil I know than the devil I don't. I know what this relationship looks like. I know how to handle the situation. I know how to calm the waters. But that world outside of this world that I know is too scary. And she could never make the leap. Never. I mean, my mum's died now, but she could never do the leap, even though she knew what was happening to her was wrong. What was being perpetrated against her was wrong. She knew that, but she couldn't leave. And I know many women or men who are in a DV relationship, they find it really difficult. But us on the outside, we can really be very judgmental and go, if I was in that situation, I would have left.
Oh, and
I now know from listening to others and reading more about it that it isn't just as easy as just leave. It just isn't. We know there's more danger, don't we, involved?
Absolutely. And if anyone's watching this, they'll see that I smiled when you were talking about your mum. I'm smiling because, yeah, I really understand that. And one of the things that I used to say, this is good as it gets. And if I'm really honest, there was a part of me, that like, obviously I didn't necessarily feel worthy back then. I was still carrying shame. I was carrying guilt. So
from the childhood stuff, let alone the relationship.
Exactly. So this is as good as it gets. And I really believe this is, and also because of what I'd gone through, the last thing I wanted was my children to come from a relationship that broke up. I wanted to do the best. And I kept thinking it was me. I'm the one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that needs
Something
to fix me.
Yeah.
And if I look at myself and try and make things, I felt damaged. I mean, I'd actually heard that word professionally.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things the words that gets my goat. But that's the message that I took. So I thought if I fixed myself, I could be a proper mum. I could be a proper wife. Do you see what I mean? And it's not, I can be honest about that now because now I've come through the tunnel. I understand now what is a loving relationship.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm in a loving relationship now. I'm not saying we never have our times.
Yeah. Yeah. We all do. That's what relationships are about. Yeah.
I understand what boundaries are. I understand what self-care is, what self-respect is, what respect for other people. And it's only when I look back now and I can find the words, because back then, I remember when that lady, Caroline, her name was, gave me the leaflet. I was like, no, not me. I'm an intelligent woman. I've got a good full-time job. Do you see what I mean? That's not me.
Yeah.
And I was carrying around my own biases. So, like when you say about you looking in, and that's where, I smiled earlier because I know exactly how that feels. Sure, that's not me.
Yeah.
Not beaten black and blue. Well, actually, I was once, but I used to say just the once. He only hit me once.
Minimize.
But the threat was always there. Always. And that's how the police stepped in, because they were on my voicemail, they were in my text. And that's even after I'd left him 2 years later.
What the threats were in your text and your emails? Yeah.
Still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
The way he spoke to me that became the norm.
Yeah. I want to pick up on 2 points, really. Often, if you've gone through abuse as a child, young person, and you don't know no different, just let's go from that perspective.
Yes.
When you get into relationship, and often all relationships start off loving, friendly, da 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 da. Most relationships, I would suggest, start off like that, and then the control takes over, and then the abuse starts. Most. The victim, if they've undergone previous abuses and their self-esteem is trashed, then all of a sudden they find themselves in what they think is a loving relationship. They don't know any different. So like you were saying, us from the outside, we can look in, especially with 2020 hindsight, and we can look in and we can go, oh my God, that's coercive control, that is domestic violence, that is. But when you're in it and it's crept up on you and it's your norm, it's very hard to see the wood for the trees because you don't know no different. And like you said, you didn't really know until someone handed you that leaflet.
Yeah. And that was many years down the line as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing is as well, when we say that things were going so well, I was waiting for something to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look back, and this is being able to look back now because I had support, I can see that in some ways I was creating that because I wasn't thinking about my own needs. I was thinking about his needs. Do you see what I mean? I was trying to be the best wife, their best mum. And, I now know that's not healthy.
Yeah.
Because you're literally just trying to do everything and keep everything neat and tidy. It was like, I'll keep it all there together. I'll control it all. And that's not life, is it?
No, but also I felt growing up in the 3 domestic violence households that I grew up in, that I was always trying to keep the peace. And that's where the people pleasing came in, because it was just like, if I just do that, and if I just minimize myself here, if I just keep quiet now, or if I just do that or do this, there'd be no backlash, no one will erupt, there will be no abuse, everything will just remain calm. But in fact, that's not what a perpetrator wants. They want chaos. They want an excuse to perpetrate an act of violence, whether it be mental, physical, in my opinion and in my experience. Yeah. My stepdad, for example, if everything was going literally okay at home because everybody was treading on eggshells and trying to keep the peace, he would create a situation that would cause something to happen. And it was almost like, see, I told you so, because he did it all. And that's what makes, so we're talking about recovery roller coaster. So this is where the complexities of trauma come in, layer upon layer upon layer. And this is why as adults, we get triggered by different things, whether it is a smell, a sound, a sight, a gut instinct. This is why the layers are so vast and why it's so complicated. So when we're talking about adult safeguarding, 100% do we want to protect adults from abuse and neglect. But if they've already gone through all of this stuff as a child and young person and as a young adult, they've already got multiple layers of all of this impact that has to be dealt with. And that is why recovery is such a roller coaster.
Absolutely, it's a roller coaster. And the other thing is, the part of the roller coaster is when we start to have recovery, like you've just completed an 8-week workshop with different survivors. So and when I'm working with my clients, I appreciate that we get all these tools, we get all this knowledge, and we think this is it now, and off we go. And then we start looking at other people and we can naturally see where they are. And the hardest part is trying not to fix, because we want to, because we've been there. We've seen the light. We've understood, oh, if I do this, and then we want to like save everyone else. We don't want them to go through. And sometimes we do that unknowingly to our own family, to our children, to our friends. And that's part of the roller coaster, because not everyone is ready to hear certain information.
Always start off my course, Bev, and because you've been part of my course on several occasions, like the information I'm sharing with you over the course of this 8 weeks, some of it will resonate with you, some of it you will take on board because it speaks to you. but probably 80% of the calls right now will not speak to you, will not resonate with you, and you're probably thinking, what the hell am I learning this for? Okay, until we recap on week 8 all of what we've learned as a individual, as a collective, and I keep reiterating, you might pick up on a bit of information, just one bit, that you'll act upon right now that will just take you a step further on your journey. But in 5 years' time, you might go, oh, that woman said something to me back then. And that's when you'll act upon that bit of information. And I think that's where the magic is imparting the knowledge that you have, but also giving people permission to use what it is that speaks to them right now. And hopefully more of it will speak to them as they go on their journey of recovery. And just as you said, everyone's journey is completely different. The rates of taking on board the information and the action from that information given will be all at different times. And some people might even take a backward step because they think that they're further on in their journey than they are. And they come to a course like mine or your client working with yourself, and they go, oh, I thought I was here, but actually I now find that something's come up for me that I actually now need to go back into counselling for. Yeah. So it really just depends on what you've gone through, what support network have you got, and where on your journey are you. And it truly is a roller coaster.
And we've spoken about this before when it's like that tick box. Oh, I've done that. Tick, tick, tick. Done. No, I don't need to do anymore. Thank you very much. And let's look at the word recovery. Recovery is ongoing. You know, I like to say the word like journey or self-care, because self-care, you know, until we can do it when we really need it, we haven't learned what self-care is. Until we can nurture ourselves, until we can give love to ourselves, how can we receive love? And if we've not been nurtured growing up and learn about nurturing, we've got to learn that ourselves. So this is where the journey comes. And you know, we'll be 100% honest. You know, we've said this before, we support each other. We also have our own support outside. We have to, because life happens.
Yeah.
You know, and we have to make sure and take responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
To look after ourselves.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say just because we're, you know, that we've done all this work, oh yeah, I skip and dance every single day. But what's lovely, the bit I do take, and I don't know about you, Chris, the bit I do take reassurance from is all the work that I have done. Now, if I get to a place where it's bloody heavy, this shit I'm carrying around at the moment, I can actually take a deep breath, step back and say, okay, so what is it you're feeling?
Yeah.
How does it feel? And I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
Don't say I like it. Don't say I like it, but I'm not looking to run from it.
But you know, we work with adult individuals that have gone through childhood trauma, domestic violence, as young people, as young adults, and we work with them in a holistic way, not to revisit their trauma, but to show them that they're worthy, that self-care is important, that they can go on and live the life that they truly want, because we give them the tools to action and move on when they're ready. So that's what we try and do with our work. But it's so many individuals over the years have said to me, when does this all end? Why do I have to go through this? You know, why is it my responsibility to do all of this work? And you can almost see them like deflate in front of you, because it's just like, not only have they gone through abuse of all forms, they've now got to put energy, time and money into recovery that none of them want to do, because they shouldn't have had to do it in the first place. If the abuse had not been perpetrated against them in the first place, they would not be spending their life trying to recover and trying to get on. So you can really see a lot of deep anger, deep resentment, and just the heaviness of it all. And, you know, literally some survivors recently as yesterday, is life really worth it? Yeah. When it really gets them down. And I don't always have an answer. All I can do is help them tap into their tools and just take literally hour by hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where one of the things, and I'll share this because this is a tool that I have learned to use myself. And as we say before, people say about, oh, what tools can people use? It's not a 1 to 10. For some people it works, for some people it doesn't. But for me, I needed to find something that I could gauge myself. And it's that gauging, you know, where am I between 1 and 10? Now, if you think of the emotional cup, 1 is the lowest, 10 is the highest. So if I was to tap in and think I'm at 2, that means I'm so low, I have nothing else to give anybody else. There's nothing. Exactly. Yeah. And when you're at that place of 1, let's be honest, let's be frank here. When you're at 1, you could, like, what am I able to do? So now I'm able to tap in and think, what level am I at? If I was to think I'm at level 4, okay, what does 4 mean for me? That means I've got more in there. Yeah. Okay. I can give a little bit out, but I'm on my way back down to 1 or 2. If I'm at 1 or 2, and I have been in the past, it very much is, so what can I do for myself right now? Is it some food I want? Is it, you know, is it support I need? Or do I need a hug from someone? Do I feel safe? They're the kind of things I'm looking at, because I'm trying to nurture myself. And I had this conversation with someone recently. I've even used, you know how we talk about the post-it notes, etc. And I've got my old ones. I pulled them out yesterday to show someone. And I remember this is a really old one, and it has actually got, what does Beverley want? And it's got 3 kisses. So when I've been in that place years ago, that's how I did it. It's like, think of myself in the 3rd place.
Literally post it at a time.
Yeah. And what is it I want? Okay, I need some food. So now what I'm always checking into is, you know, like when we think glass half full. Yeah. So if I'm at level 5, actually, I've got half a glass, if that's how it feels. Yeah. So what one thing could I do for me to feel at level 6? Yeah. Do I need to release something? Is there something I want to say? Do I want to journal with a pen? Do I want to type it out? Do you see what I mean? And it helps me get that level of where I am, up a bit, but not as a judgment. It's not a score. And that's, I'm saying level. It's not a score to be judged. Likewise, if I've been out and I'm having a fantastic time, and I feel I'm at level 9 or 10, fantastic. Maybe I had a great weekend, birthday, wedding, or whatever. But then the next few days you come on that come down. Yeah. For a minute, there's that roller coaster feeling. Oh my God, I'm going down, I'm going down, I'm going down. Well, hold on. Are you? What level do you feel you're at? Oh, I actually feel like I'm at level 7. Okay. So actually, what does level 7 mean for you? Yeah. So it's just to reassure myself that I'm not going down there. Yeah. And that's, some people will be listening to that and want to hear more about that. And if they don't understand, please email in, because I've been more than happy to help with that. But what kind of tools do you work with yourself, Chris?
This is going to sound, I don't know how it's going to sound, but you know, I'm quite blunt and quite stripped back when I explain things. So when I had my breakdown, for example, I knew what that felt like that was me on the floor. Yeah. And I never, ever, ever, ever want to go there again, because it's scary. I didn't know how I was going to pick myself up. And I never want to feel it again. So I know what that feels like. That's my ground zero.
Yes.
So anything above that, when I'm low, is magic.
Yes.
So I never want to go there. So I never allow myself to go maybe less than a 4 if you want to do a level 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Because I know that when my battery starts to run down from 10 to a 4, when it gets to a 4, that's like, right, listen to your brain, listen to your body. What is it telling you? What do you need to do? Yeah. And what I say to my groups, Bev, as well, over the course of the 8 weeks is, we've all gone through something, and whatever that something is, because I never want to go back to details, because we're not there for that. When you was a child and young person, you had no control over anything that happened to you. But as an adult now, you do. And I always make sure that when I say this, that no one's in current danger, because it could obviously be a trigger. I said, you know what that felt like. As an adult now, you're not in any danger. This is your reality. So I make sure that this is a reality for everybody that's attending. And I say, you know what that felt like. You had no control. You are now an adult. You have control. And the reality is you are not in danger. You was then, but you're not now. So it don't matter how far you go down. It's never going to be as bad as that. Do you agree or do you not agree? And we have that conversation. And usually by the end of a conversation, they all are at a place where they agree that actually, as an adult, in a safe space for them, because none of them are in abusive situations right now, they can see that no matter how much they get triggered by a false trigger, a false alarm, that they're not actually in danger, and they're never going to go back to that place. So they already feel like they've grown a little bit. So I almost sort of like go back to the bare bones and the basics of things, and really be quite stark and blunt in my descriptions, because I want them to truly understand that they have, even if they don't feel it, they have all moved on from the situation where there was no control, and the reality was they were being abused and harmed, and that is no longer the situation. So now they have control, and let's show them how to harness that and actually believe it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And this is the magic. So when I'm working with clients, most of my clients, especially if I'm one-to-one, we go on obviously longer. And the magical part about recovery is when somebody has been able to recognize it, when the light bulb comes on, when they say, I felt myself, I got to level 4, and then I thought, oh, hold on, what am I doing? They're able to check in. I'm at level 4. What can I do? What do I need? What do I want? You know, and that could be anything, you know. And that may be going to a peer-to-peer group, support group. That may be speaking to a friend, or it may be going for a walk. But as you say, recognizing I'm getting low. You know, if I'm going lower than a 4, you know, no, 4 is my, you know, I like to be between 4 and 8. That's my, so you can go up and down. Because life happens. But that's the magic of recovery. And I think this conversation is really useful, especially as we're talking about safeguarding, because when we think about safeguarding, or I know I do, and I know in conversations, we automatically assume, well, people should be able to ask. But even in adulthood, they can't, for lots of different reasons. So safeguarding is about also raising awareness, so that we understand, you know, and we see that around us all the time. Look at exploitation.
You
know.
But you know, safeguarding though, Bev, if you've got the awareness, then you can safeguard yourself, you can safeguard your loved ones, okay? But we're also talking about safeguarding in the context of organisations and their duty of care to their service users. or to their employees, whatever situation it is. And you just need to look across social media, mainstream media, people sharing their lived experiences, and there are so many bystanders to acts of safeguarding concern, because people just do not have either the confidence, the know-how, or they have reported concerns, yet it gets blocked. So all of this safeguarding needs to be part of culture and needs to be led by leadership. So embedded in the culture, leadership need to be very clear about what it looks like, how people can whistle blow and not get penalized, and what it looks like to actually be an upstander and not a bystander to sexual harassment, to exploitation, to domestic violence, whatever the situation is. We need to have a stark conversation with ourselves at a societal level and just go, you know what, no more. We're not bystanding, we're upstanding, we're saying no, because we've explained this whole podcast about the layers and the complexity of the harm, the impact of that harm. It's ongoing, it's lifetime. Yeah. And if we do not sort us adults out by breaking the cycle 2 step forwards, we've got another generation of children and young people coming up and going through exactly the same.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you've really brought that to a conclusion in a really great way. So my last sort of closing on this would really be, you know, when we're talking about safeguarding, like really open your mind to safeguarding and be aware of your unconscious bias, because we all have that. Let's be frank, we all have that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We all judge.
Yeah, and judgment keeps us safe sometimes, but when it means that it's putting people in danger, let's just stop with the judgment. Let's look at it the other side. Let's ask questions.
Yeah, and like you said, judgment can be silencing to other people that are going through something, because we don't actually understand it because we're not in their shoes.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I judged my mum.
Yeah.
For a long time, and I still don't get all of it. I really don't. From my perspective as a victim as well. But as you said, open your mind.
Yeah. So any other questions with anybody listening to this, our email, the link will always be underneath, but it's Breaking the Cycle 2 Step Forward, and we'd love you to send us questions if you want any clarification. Any last thoughts from yourself, Chris?
No, I just wanted to share with everybody that you and we do presentations and talks for organisations. We've just been involved in a safeguarding presentation conference, and we've got that presentation. It's ready to rock and roll for any other organisations that might want to hear from us. So I just wanted to share that here for people to contact us as well.
And one thing I'm going to say, we were actually the keynote speakers.
Oh yes, I keep forgetting that. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
For many practitioners within the social care aspect, which is and it's interactive, which we always enjoy. We open that conversation with many. So thank you for that. And it's time to say goodbye.
Okay, everyone. Until next time. Au revoir. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.